our assessment is we've probably killed 1,000.
Jesus Christ.
It's just disgusting a number. So we probably killed most of their command and control in the area. It was just horrendous.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out Operation Medusa when NATO forces took the fight to the Taliban. Yes guys, now I want to say I'm making this video partially because I'm interested. I don't know all the details about it, but I have heard of it, of course. Hard not to. Of course, being a ex-reservist, being a former military member in Canada's military, you do hear of one of the larger combat actions taking place by Canadian forces in Afghanistan, of course, so hard not to hear about this from my side, but I'm also making this partially because of the recent remarks from Donald Trump, obviously talking about Canada's war effort and war contribution to Afghanistan. I don't really think that's necessarily fair. Over the course of our time in Afghanistan, we did contribute 40,000 military members over there, everything from Navy elements, Air Force, of course, Army as well, intelligence. We basically sent, we contributed quite a bit, so it's unfair to say that we didn't. And also, I think we lost around, 160 armed forces over there as well. So not a huge amount, but we did lose quite a bit to friendly fire incidents as well from the American side, usually from American Air Force or aircraft, I should say, right? Once during a training exercise where live fire ordnance was dropped on a Canadian position, and I believe the other time was actually during Operation Medusa here, so I don't really want to spoil it too much from what I know, but essentially a Warthog strafed, I believe it was C Company from the Royal Canadian Regiment, which was the Reg Force regiment deployed to basically take this position, take this objective. Ended up strafing C Company, only killed one, but injured, I think it was like 30 to 40 people, and basically rendered C Company completely combat ineffective for the rest of the action. I believe it was the case of a misidentification from the ground. I believe there's a garbage fire, something to that degree, being burnt, and the American pilot mistook that as a smoke signal to strafe that mark. Now, I'm not really sure how you mistake LAVs and CAD-PAD for fucking, Taliban vehicles and whatnot in a Taliban position, but I digress. We're not really too salty about that, but it's just a case of after the fact, especially when blue on blue incidents did happen, to the degree that they did happen. That's, now we're being told there's no contribution. So again, I would vote for Donald Trump myself if I was an American. Just makes sense not to. I'm not loyal to the person, I'm not loyal to the party, but just out of pure fucking common sense, the Democrats make no fucking sense over there. So it's not even like blind loyalty to that. We're not really here to talk about that. I just want to make clear that, like, I just think that's unfair. You know what I'm saying? As somebody who lives here, but also somebody who did serve in the military, it's just kind of like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, we're all over there. I know you guys contributed a lot. You're also fucking, 10 times our GDP. So it's like, I don't know. And also volunteer force, right? We got, at the time we had 30 million people at the time, and America had 350, 400 million. So it just kind of makes sense population density wise as well, right? Like, you think Canada is massive. Well, in terms of size, we are. In terms of land, yes, but in terms of population, not really. You know what I mean? And that's gotten a lot larger recently. My opinion, unfortunately, but it is what it is. But yeah, without any further delay, guys, I've yapped on for quite a bit, so let's get right into Operation Medusa here. This is a 44-minute documentary uploaded by War Stories. I'm excited to learn more about it. Let's leave a like here. Captions on. Quality is it's not quality. Quality is 1080p. We're full screen. Without any further delay, guys, let's get it. In early 2006, Canada sent 2,500 soldiers to Kandahar province. With the U.S. busy in Iraq, the Canadians were the largest coalition force in southern Afghanistan. The Taliban thought they could defeat them and retake the country.
When we landed in Kandahar, it was quite the eye-opener.
It's a lot different. It's in 2006.
There's fighter aircraft taking off. There's helicopters going. So you realize, my God,
intelligence officer.
This is something much bigger. So the enormity of the mission really kind of hit home and what Canada was actually involved with.
We are now entering Kandahar City. Check it out.
Fucking G-Wagons, dude. Oh my god.
And all I can think of is, you know, I grew up with Star Wars. So Star Wars and Jabba the Hutt, and here we are. I'm in Star Wars. In the back of our minds,
I've literally had, like, my sergeant describe that exact statement. It's literally like fucking Star Wars. It's literally like Star Wars. Fuck, dude. Like, and this is a largely too, right? This is, you know, how military members in Canada will present themselves in an official capacity, right? Obviously, I'm sure it's different in America, or the same in America too. You know, obviously, when you're talking with the boys, it's a little bit different, right? But yeah, you know, largely, this is how we talk. This is very professional.
Jabba the Hutt, and here we are. I'm in Star Wars. In the back of our minds was bombers and cars. There was now a resurgent Taliban, at least in the shadows.
Yeah.
A lot of those villages and tribes in those areas had already become so disenfranchised with their own local government that they had already turned to the Taliban.
And not to cut it off too much, but
in the shadows,
you see there, these guys are, oh yeah, no, actually, no, they're not. You see there, right? They still got the fucking, so we went through a fucking phase in Afghanistan, and it was so fucked because even at my armory, right, the armory I was a part of, we fucking, you could see on the wall guys who served in Afghanistan there, and who went over there, and yeah, it would be, I guess your fucking, your tanned CAD pad, right? But you'd still have your normal CAD pad fishing vest, essentially, right? Your normal CAD pad fucking mag carrier or whatever, right? So it's like just insane to fucking see that, right? So he's wearing green on top of the desert camis, dude. It's gross, but like that's what we had to do. We didn't have anything else.
A lot of those villages and tribes in those areas had already become.
Eventually, they changed that. Eventually,
government that they
we got proper camo, but it was rough for a while.
Fueled the insurgency. We arrived at a time that the recruitment was well underway.
First time we came under contact, it wasn't from a bomber at all. We were driving back, and I was in my boss's vehicle, and someone fires an RPG at us.
Oh, yeah.
The RPG goes through one of our soft-skinned G-Wagon vehicles and goes straight underneath the back seats. The guys that were sitting in the back seat have the RPG go underneath them, go straight through. Their pants are on fire, but not bad.
Goddamn, dude.
So they've just, you know, clearly had a close call. That's when
I think I've heard of that incident too.
We're an army of strangers in a land of strangers.
Yeah. Battle of White School, yeah. And so there was a lot of stipulations around White School too. Obviously the naming, right? The naming was the biggest problem with it, right? And they probably will talk about this. I'm not trying to spoil too much, but you know, Battle of White School. It's called they call it White School, right? It's not a school at all. It was actually a Taliban stronghold, but it was made originally, its intended use was to be a school, right? Well, obviously the Taliban came in, no more children were receiving education there for many, many years. It was a strong point, strong walls, right? Easily defendable. Taliban made it basically a stronghold, right? I believe multiple calls for air support and just to bomb the shit out of it were called. No action was ever taken on it because, again, as the name implies, it's a school. No, it's fucking not, right? It hasn't been used as a school for decades, right? But I digress. Yeah, bullshit. And also, yeah, the top. I think the thing in Afghanistan that had the largest kill count on our, like for us, was of course IEDs. I think it's similar for Americans too. IEDs. Unfortunately, were the largest casualty contributor. You know, improvised explosive devices. It wasn't combat. It wasn't anything else. It was IEDs. You know, roadside bombs. Fucking piece of trash blows up and suddenly a lav is gone. You know what I mean? Full of infantry. It's insane shit.
I was a little concerned about the provincial reconstruction team going into Kandahar. One of the first things that the Taliban did in Kandahar was start killing off Red Cross workers.
Yeah.
And that happened very early on. That happened in 2003, 2004. So the idea behind the PRT was that it would provide a little bit of protection.
This guy probably would have been an
We knew
LT.
that Kandahar was, I wouldn't call it wild
In
west,
Afghanistan.
maybe wild south. And the concern was that the PRT would simply be a goat on a rope.
Officers would work with a platoon of soldiers and accompany them in their fighting vehicles.
Dude, the fucking G-Wagon. I hate G-Wagons so much, dude.
Soldiers.
This is we use the little updated, mind you, but largely, yeah, the same fucking vehicle, even today, right? I believe they were actually trying to fucking, I believe they were actually trying to update those vehicles, but no, no, we still use those. Now, the ones I was in and drove around, I unfortunately didn't have a gun mount, but yeah, no.
And accompany them in their fighting vehicles to engage in discussions with village leaders throughout a whole district, one village at a time. And in those discussions, ascertain village requirements.
So gross.
and
Yeah,
whether or
look
not-
at that. Fucking green fishing vest, dude. So gross. I hate that.
At a time.
Oh,
In those discussions, ascertain village requirements and whether or
Pad
not
pad
the
frag
government
vest on
structure
too,
of the
dude.
district and the
Oh.
province was caring about the problems of the village and doing something about it.
My job was to liaise with village elders and find out what they needed for food, water, shelter, and education. Those were my bugaboos, education. I would ask the elders if their girls could be educated. When they stopped laughing, they said, if I built them in a separate school, they could.
Why were they laughing?
Because the concept of educating girls is like educating dogs to them.
yeah.
Captain Green was with Captain Shamoon in a platoon from A Company, engaged in a shura with local leaders or elders in Shinkay village.
We walked in, we lay our weapons down and our helmets. It started out well. It was our third of the day. And the previous two had gone well. We were feeling good about it. And for this shura, Rob Dolson had asked to come. He was on my left.
Why do you take your helmets off?
A sign of respect.
When you're engaged in shura,
Yeah, and that's largely what it was, right? And I think Americans also engage in this type of activity as well. Cultural initiative, cultural understanding, right? Where you're trying to abide by the culture of the people living there, right? And this was largely to gain trust and gain rapport with the people who live there. Unfortunately, the Taliban would often use events like this to sabotage these relations, right? Because again, you're not supposed to bear arms. You're not supposed to have weapons around, right? You're supposed to remove your protection. It's to show that you're not here to fight, right? But then obviously if Taliban show up, they can sour that very fucking quickly, right? With understandable consequences sometimes from both sides, sometimes, but are also, the village largely would see that as a sign of disrespect to them by the Taliban, right? So they would largely, that's when you'd see allied Taliban villages try to join in with the coalition there, right? And try to aid them.
That's all.
A sign of
Which unfortunately made them a bigger target, right?
when you're
But-
engaged in shura, you can take your helmet off, you can take your personal protective equipment off, because Pashtunwali culture demands that the host in that village guarantees your protection while you're engaged in that kind of activity. In the middle of this shura, an Afghan youth branding an axe came up behind Captain Green.
Walked up behind me, took an axe from under his robe, and sank it in my head like he was chopping a log.
Jesus Christ, man.
The axe penetrated 3 inches into my skull.
Jesus.
My brains are leaking out. When the man on my left, Rob Dolson, managed to grab his weapon and shoot 2 rounds into the kid before he could strike again, he saved my life. Rob Dolson, my hero. It was a
It's crazy though, and again, like, yeah, an Afghan youth, so who knows, right? Indoctrination, whatever have you, right? But again, and sucks. Hate to put down a kid like that, right? But unfortunately, right, as we all know, and hear plenty of stories about it, right? The Taliban were no strangers to using children to carry out military actions, because they know NATO forces, Western forces will hesitate upon firing upon children, right? It's sick, but it's the truth, right? But obviously, in a case like this, like what do you do, right? What's the right reaction to something like that, right? And I have to say, right, this fella here is lucky to be alive, you know. It's insane. He survived an axe blow straight to the skull like that. That's fucking, it's metal, man. It's metal.
My hero. And it was a signal for a Taliban ambush from across the river.
Yeah, see, the Taliban set that up.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't even just like a premeditated, like, yeah,
There was
Taliban.
a firefight immediately afterwards. There were some Taliban hidden in the village. So in fact, Shin K had been harboring a Taliban cell while they were in discussion with us.
Oh.
The youth was coerced by the Talibs, we don't know.
So, and this also happened a lot too. I'm sorry to pause here so much, guys. I'm gonna be pausing a lot during this video because it's just interesting to talk about, and this is just shit I've heard, right? Unfortunately, again, during these talks, right, and this happened a lot too. Sometimes it would go very well, right? Sometimes you get an allied village on side. Other times it was straight a trap, right? They would offer to have this meeting with you, and then once you're disarmed, once you're here to show no hostilities, no harm being done, they would then turn on you, and the Taliban would show up, and it would be, you know, for lack of a better word, an ambush for, you know, all extensive purposes. Yeah, crazy shit. You hate to see this happen, but it's, you know, it is what it is, right? They made their bed, they're gonna sleep in it, right? That's what this is gonna be, I think.
Youth was coerced by the Talibs, we don't know.
Pushtunwali, the code of hospitality, had been extended to them. This is now an issue between the Afghans and the Taliban, and how the Taliban don't respect their own culture. Because this was not a breach of protocol between the Afghans and us. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with the Afghans and how the Taliban don't respect their own culture.
So it wasn't,
After he had been wounded, a lot of agencies,
it wasn't an ambush. It was,
whether or not
they
they're
just
going to
showed up and
continue
ambushed them.
developmental efforts.
Right, that's what I thought.
So it was a natural thing for us to move into more lethal combat operations by April of 2006.
The Taliban brought a guy named Mullah Dadullah Lang back into the fold. And Dadullah Lang was a Taliban commander who'd actually been fired by Mullah Omar for being too brutal.
Wow.
Dadullah Lang came back to Omar and said, listen, we've discovered a scheme here. Okay, the Americans are going to pull out of Kandahar. They're going to hand it over to the Canadians. There's a potential weakness here because the Canadians won't fight. So he convinced Mullah Omar that 2006 was the year that he could take back Kandahar City.
I had information that they had built a defensible base, a very large one in that area with compounds, defensive positions, and their sole job was to use that as a staging area to be able to launch attacks into Kandahar City. That was the purpose of it.
They planned to actually go from those bases to do a spectacular attack in Kandahar City that would get world press and demoralize NATO and make us lack credibility.
There were at least 1,500 fighters in that area, and they were ready to launch an attack into Kandahar City.
Wow.
I had enough information to say the force that Colonel Hope was launching was a lot smaller for the fight that we were going into. I didn't want the operation to go through, but the decision was made to launch on it.
So when Colonel Hope rolled the 1st Battalion Task Force Orion into Pashmul on the 3rd of August, they basically hit a hornet's nest.
Attention there, military history enthusiasts. Brace yourself for an unparalleled journey into the heart of warfare with History Hit, where the untold stories of desperate battles come to life. Join James Holland on a gripping road trip through Italy in Road to Victory, Italy 1943, uncovering the often overlooked campaign of the British 8th Army's landing and advance up the Italian peninsula in 1943. Next,
actually, you don't hear about that very often, do you?
The First World War with Alex Churchill, tracing the bloody battles that unfolded before the trenches, revealing the clash of modern weapons and Napoleonic tactics in a conflict that set the stage for the Great War. And finally, follow the one and only Rishi Sharma in Untold Stories of World War II as he raced against time to capture over 2,200 personal oral histories from living
Oh,
combat
wow.
veterans, preserving the harrowing accounts of those who lived at the bleeding edge on the front line. Discover hundreds of hours of award-winning documentaries and ad-free podcasts with History Hit. Sign up for a special offer via the link in the description.
Awesome. Well, if you guys plan on signing up for that, go use the link.
We mustered a company from 2PPCLI with a task to clear the area of Highway 1.
So Princess Patricia's light infantry, by the way.
Ian, I need you to take the town. Where is it? I said, you just go south, and when they start shooting at you, you've reached it.
Pretty much.
Highway 1.
Exactly what you want to hear as an infantry, dude.
West of Kandahar City toward Helmand. Very, very important road.
We would move towards what was referred to as a white school.
Was it a school?
From what I understand, the school did exist at one point. The Taliban went in, beheaded some of the teachers.
Oh, Jesus.
A school in name only.
The fact that we call it to this day a white school perplexes me. It was a Taliban fort. It had been built as a white school. You know, it was a big brick building that was very sturdy, and so they took it over and turned it into a fortress. On the morning of August the 3rd, the battle group launched, and really they knew that the center of Taliban resistance was going to be the white school, the Taliban fortress.
And I remember Colonel Holt saying, we're going to an extremely volatile part of the country, and we are going to see combat. And hand in hand with that, you know, he was very matter of fact about the fact that not everyone was going to come home.
Yeah.
I led the southern group out at about 3 in the morning. At about 4:15, we found a group of Taliban fighters in what could only be an early warning position.
Labs opening up there.
Forward to cover us as we move our way through to the blocking position.
The lead lab,
They probably got IEDs stationed all along this road.
Contact and said, you know, I see 6 guys with rocket propelled grenades and machine guns, and I'm asking permission to fire.
And I said yes.
So it's going to be over in that direction.
So we basically fired upon that group with concentrated lab fire of 4 different vehicles using 25mm machine guns.
Not much left.
There's
yeah.
not much left of that group.
Yeah, exactly. Not much left. Yeah. That's
and then we were
missed.
Moving forward to actually get onto that position and find out what it was when one of our vehicles hit an IED.
Yeah, there it is. Yep. Fucking IEDs, man.
And it struck the lead lav, which was driven by Corporal Chris Reed.
How bad is it?
And he was killed.
Yeah.
There's
Instantly.
a number of IEDs on.
Fucking dirty thing about those IEDs, man, is like, yeah, like there's just so fucking many of them just everywhere, right? And it's like, obviously you do what you can to avoid them, but you, like, this isn't a lot of the times only one fucking road, you know what I mean? And it's shit, even when you get off road, you gotta worry about a bag of trash, you know what I mean? From what I hear. And it's like, no wonder they were the highest contributing casualty factor, you know what I mean? It's just, it's no wonder it, you know, the Taliban largely, some of these guys had combat experience, but a lot of them were just completely fucking untrained, don't even know which way to point their AK, but fuck, they can make bombs apparently, dude.
And he was killed.
The number of IEDs on the road prevented us from wanting to risk any more labs moving forward.
Colonel Hope is like, okay, we really need to get there, but I'm not willing to drive down this road anymore.
No.
So we're going to do this assault on foot.
Just lost one of your 4 labs.
I got together and we basically figured what the best approach was up to the school. The labs that were already in position, it wasn't wise to move them forward. We didn't know how many IEDs were in the road.
Looks like they're aided by
2025 Afghan National Police.
Yeah, Afghan National. I was gonna say that's ANA, right?
These
guys? Yeah, that's ANA. Interesting. So Afghan National Police now, again, hear very mixed things about them. Either they were sometimes okay, but most of the time, from what I hear from stories about these guys, is they were fucking useless, for lack of a better word, is how I heard a few of my sergeants describe them as. One sergeant and I think one captain mentioned that, you know? So, yeah.
We're in the road.
Not going to say anything more.
They had about 25 Afghan National Police attached to John Hamilton's platoon. And as they moved forward, they sustained heavy fire from all around the White School. The Afghan National Police immediately fled the battlefield.
I called back to Colonel Hope.
So yeah, they just immediately ran away.
The Afghan National Police
of course.
ran away. They're hiding now in a ditch.
Amazing.
And he goes, John, you have to show them how it's done. And I said, no problem, sir.
He courageously moved his forward troops into the school area. Into the couple of
Let's be honest, they weren't going to do anything anyway.
Set there, which meant I would have to find more forces to come forward to begin the clearance.
I don't know how true it was, right? And I think it was more of like a mentality sort of thing, but like I've heard some people say like when they were stationed with, you know, ANA, it was kind of the case of like we would just, you know, they'd be attached to us, but we'd act like they're not even there in a sense. Like if we get in the shit, just assume they're not there. So just assume mentally that they're not there anyway. You know what I mean? Because chances are they're not going to be fucking combat effective when it comes to it anyway. That's just what I've heard. Yeah, I don't know, man. Hate to give him a bad name, but like, fuck me.
He was set there, which meant I would have
too many
to find
stories
more
like this, man.
To come forward to begin the clearance. As I was beginning to plan that, it became obvious to us that he was actually in a kill zone, that the enemy had wanted this to happen.
And that's when the firing really started to pick up. Several RPGs, heavy small arms fire going over our heads. It's about maybe 11 o'clock, getting close to noon. Sun is at its peak and it's 45, 50 degrees Celsius. It's extremely hot. I have guys going down to heat stroke.
God damn.
You have to compartmentalize as a commander on a battlefield. You know these soldiers, you love these soldiers, and there's no other word appropriate for that. You love them. If they trust you, you feel that back. Committing them to what is almost certain injury and death is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
At this point in the operation, though, I'd got over that.
So I had stayed back with those guys to provide a foot on the ground for John and the rest of the assault forces movement up to the school, and they were doing it in bounds.
By the time I got up to the school, to the objective area,
Back up.
I had 14 men. The vast majority of them were combat ineffective due to heat stroke, and also Private Kevin Dallaire was wounded at that time. Our situation was very precarious. They needed reinforcements up here as quick as possible.
And that's another thing too, the heat stroke, the heat in general, right? You're talking about it being 40 fucking degrees, always going up to 50. I hear sometimes even the high 50s, right? At times, you know, depending on circumstance, right? You're out there fighting, baking in the sun. You're obviously not hydrating, right? And I heard over there, right? Like you're going through fucking, if you can get it down, 6-7 liters of water a day, you know what I mean? Which is fucking crazy. But yeah, it's just because you're sweating it all out. So you're in a combat environment, fucking proned out, you know, behind a wall or crouched down behind a wall, just baking in this heat. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Combat ineffectiveness due to heat stroke. You know, it'll kill you potentially or incapacitate you as easily as a bullet will, unfortunately. But yeah, no, what do you do, right?
They needed reinforcements.
You only drink so much water, right? Beforehand.
The fire was pretty intense. It was coming from all over the place. There's 14 Canadians against what turned out to be 150 to 200 Taliban. So I'd asked for indirect fire support from artillery. And it was denied.
Why?
By higher headquarters because of potential collateral damage because this was called a school.
Yeah.
NATO's command and control philosophy
Exactly.
of Kabul was tight control of all combat forces. So, orders came down about tight regulations with the use of fire, indirect fire, direct fire, aircraft. So when we say school, there has to be a board
Guy's just tapping his fingers on the keyboard. Make it look like you're doing something.
With lawyers
fuck?
and experts in different types of fire and munitions, and somebody who
Prop
knows
photo.
about that actual facility, and they decide whether or not we can fire at that building.
That was why we had no fast air and we had no artillery. And on a conventional battlefield where we have all these enablers that are supposed to be at our disposal, to be denied them in a situation like that was, it was absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What was your feeling about that?
Yeah, I can repeat the words I used, but I was pretty
upset.
I was pretty upset.
Yeah. And again, and this is like at the point where you're talking about like lives on the line, right? And to know that you have these assets actively available and they're just being completely denied to you for such a bullshit reason. Like, this is clearly a Taliban strong point. Like, what are we talking about here? But yeah, no, it's a joke. And then to know that eventually, to some degree, it gets repealed, and it hasn't happened yet, but I believe they're going to get to it here, you know?
I was pretty...
I believe it happened on the 3rd or 4th day, that blue on blue incident.
One thing that will forever stick out in my mind is the radio chatter when those guys came under contact in the south. You could tell they were fighting literally for their lives.
Yeah, no
And to
doubt.
hear some of the voices on that radio, I'll never forget.
John Hamilton is yelling, "You have to come help us, you have to come help us, we've got casualties." So I looked at the two guys that were with me, Bryce and Mark, and I said, "Okay guys, we have to go link up with those guys." Now at this point the volume of fire is picking up, and so there's machine gun fire and small arms fire. There's rockets coming down the road. So we got up and we started running across this field, and it was absolutely insane. It was one of those things that I think when you watch a movie and you see bullets splashing around people's feet and rocks skimming by your head and stuff like that, that's exactly what it was like. And at the time I wasn't really thinking a whole lot about it, but I remember thinking,
just doing it, yeah.
You know, I really hope we make it.
Bombing it across an open fucking field, dude. That's not what you want to be doing.
Guys were fighting hard.
This is what it is, though.
All of a sudden, things just went black, and I felt this explosion hit.
RPG? Oh shit!
Boom. This giant explosion, and I'm being propelled backwards across this room, and I hit the wall.
After the round hit and I opened my eyes, Von Ingram was right across from me. Von was actually, as he was dying, was providing first aid to others that were wounded as well. You know, it just speaks to the type of man that he was.
It really became obvious that there's a lot of bad guys out there that really want us dead.
Gotta be artillery or something, maybe recoilless
Now,
rifle.
there's 3 dead. Kevin Dallaire is seriously wounded, like gravely injured. 6 others that are pretty beat up. So there's like 4 of us that are not injured that are still able to fight.
Jesus.
Went and grabbed the radio and got one transmission back, was get those f***ing labs up here, we're gonna die. And then the radio went dead.
That's fucked.
I put out a
that is
call
depressing,
for
dude.
fire. Basically, it's a plea from a ground commander saying we're in trouble. If there's any aircraft out there that can help. I wasn't authorized to drop a bomb, but I was authorized for a show of force.
Oh, okay.
So what the U.S. Air Force did was send a B-1 bomber at 500 feet.
Shock and awe.
Now, if you've ever been under a B-1 bomber
Holy
flying at 500
shit.
feet, it's probably the equivalent of an earthquake. The entire
Holy
ground
shit, dude.
shakes.
It's a show of force.
It was only the Air Force coming at that critical moment that saved us and turned the tide.
Labs were firing like crazy as they were driving up. And by the time they got to the school, so that by the time they crossed that 150 meters, all their guns were dry. They'd fired every single bullet.
Jesus.
I remember yelling over to Willie McDonald. I said, Willie, I said, get the over here and help me out because I'm hurting. So eventually they came up.
So what was it? I think it was, what, 14 guys that initially went up there, and 4 of them were still combat effective at the end there, man. That's fucking ridiculous. Holy shit.
So eventually they came up, loaded us in the labs.
Not ridiculous on there, but just...
And I remember looking over at...
Like, the circumstances, no support coming in, you know what I mean? Like, that's...
They're all kind of sitting in the bed of the truck there.
So shitty.
They were laughing. That
oh, the A&A?
Enraged me.
Yeah, that'd be...
to the point that if I had my rifle in reach, it probably would have ended extremely ugly for them. And at that point, I had no doubt in my mind they had something to do with it.
Yeah, and honestly, too, and I've heard this from some American veterans that were in Afghanistan at one point, A&A, like, that was another thing. You had to worry literally about rats, about plants, about potentially them knowing that you're walking into a Taliban ambush, and then when they run away, you know, nothing's going to happen to them, whatever have you, right? But, you know, they don't give a fuck if you die, you know, kind of thing. So it's like, there's a lot of, I've heard situations of, like, you know, and some people might call it, I don't even know if I should say it, kind of war crimey, but like sending them in first, you know, send them as an auxiliary, you know, see what happens. You know, if you got suspicions and if you have reason to suspect, chances are in that case, a lot of guys trusted their gut. Some people weren't wrong. Some people might've been, right? I'm not going to say too much, right? But that's, yeah, you know, is what it is.
At that point, I had no doubt in my mind they had something to do with it.
The hardest decision I ever made was at the end of August 3rd, walking away from that fight. I don't regret the decision.
No, you got to pull back sometimes.
Is it tough to talk about?
I've talked about it 1,000 times, and, you know, from a personal therapy perspective there, it's what's helped me the most deal with that, is talking about it and letting people know the type of heroes that fought that day.
Yeah.
Guys like Sergeant Von Ingram, Corporal Bryce Keller, Private Kevin Dallaire, Corporal Chris Reed, guys like that. I have to talk about it because I'd be doing them an injustice if I didn't.
That's exactly it, right?
I was just as upset as everybody else because, in knowing something that might happen, then it comes true, it weighs on you, and it weighed on me for many years. Even though we took significant casualties at the White School, and it was a tough day for everybody, that allowed us to confirm the information that led to Operation Medusa, so that eventually led to the saving of Kandahar City.
Or died on August 3rd. Yep. Canadians returned in force a month later. Their goal, root out the Taliban. Operation Medusa would be NATO's... Hold on, what'd that say? Operation NATO would be the largest battle that NATO had ever fought. In the summer of 2006, the Taliban massed their forces near Kandahar City, hoping to recapture Afghanistan. The only forces available to stop them were the Canadians. Operation Medusa would be the biggest battle NATO had ever fought.
Fighting a counterinsurgency of the nature that the Taliban presented was as combat-oriented as anything we've seen since Korea or World War II. The ground that they picked was the same ground that the Mujahideen had fought on when they defeated a Russian division 30 years earlier. It's the same ground that they beat the British on in the 1800s. This is the same piece of dirt they've been fighting over for hundreds of years.
The White School was a Taliban stronghold that was being used as their base of operation.
All Afghanistan, the death of empires, man.
In one of the biggest kill zones that the Taliban had created, a very large, over a kilometer long.
Operation Medusa was actually the second operation to take the White School.
The White School was the same objective that the 1 PPCLI battle group had trouble dealing with about a month earlier before Medusa.
So it wasn't really a school?
No. Not a school at all.
I had a field troop in the north attached to Bravo Company, and they were staging out of Patrol Base Wilson. The idea was to sandwich the insurgents in Pajmal by approaching from the north and from the south across the river. In the north and from the south across the river.
With an attack launching from the south, there was a chance that the enemy would begin to withdraw north, where we would be waiting. Hammer and anvil kind of strategy.
With 3 companies worth of labs, we were the most powerful fighting force since the Soviets were there. The Americans had nothing like that. In the end, we were it. We were the only show in town that could do the job.
This was going to be the biggest battle NATO has ever had, before or since.
The orders were they're going to do 3 days of aerial bombings.
God damn.
So they were going to soften the defenses up of the Taliban. We had actually dropped leaflets saying, you are to leave this area. And they had marked off, if you're found in this rectangle, you will be seen as a combatant and you will be, taken out.
We started seeing people sort of surging out. We were checking people, searching people to make sure that they weren't armed or, Taliban trying to flee the area.
Picture like a classic movie where all the civilians are fleeing, and yet all the soldiers are going in the opposite direction.
Once they started with the airstrikes, we're sort of hanging out on the sidelines, so to speak, waiting for the order to move. Anxiety was starting to kick in.
The initial plan called for 48 to 72 hours of bombardment to soften up the target. The decision was made to abridge that by General Fraser, I believe.
Oh, really? Why?
To use air power alone and just bomb everything off the face of the earth would not have defeated the enemy. They would have moved out of the way, or they would have hunkered down in holes, because you can't destroy everybody who's hiding.
No, but you can soften them.
Disenfranchises everybody who owned a house there.
That is true.
You're not there to destroy the homes of people.
That is a fair take.
Combat is
that is a reasonable take, and especially, again, considering the counterinsurgency, or the insurgency methods, I should say, of the Taliban, right? It's the case of making martyrs out of people, and not trying to victimize the civilians there to join that insurgency force, right? You're trying to get the people on side with you to show them that this way of life is the better way of life, as opposed to Taliban rule, right? And it's hard to do that when obviously Western forces come occupy their land, and then of course now your house, now your home is gone, destroyed, rubble, because a battle took place there, and Americans, Canadians, British, whatever have you, literally bomb the shit out of your home. That would anyone would feel strongly about that, to be completely reasonable. So it's a reasonable take. It's just, in this scenario, is it the right take? Who knows? Who knows, right?
Destroy the homes of people.
Combat is basically everything we had trained for up to this point. So yeah, I'd say we were kind of raring to go. We really had no clue what was coming.
Charles' company then was to advance across the river and get up onto the White School and seize it. Ideally, it would have been unopposed, but what they drove into, Charles' company drove into, was a very determined enemy.
When we first pushed off, it was pretty quiet. We hadn't seen combat up to that point, so we didn't really know what to expect or what we were looking for, really.
We dismounted from the labs, and then we went forward. It was disheartening, Like, you're looking around like, why are we walking in a line, straight line, World War I style.
Literally.
I remember looking up and seeing this green pen flare, and I thought, man, that's weird. Why is there a pen flare just going up in the air? The Taliban had sent this up, and that was the signal
For the
letting
ambush.
everyone know that
Yeah.
we had gone far enough into the trap. Charles Company literally marched into the guns. Then they open up.
They essentially lured us into that kill zone.
All hell broke loose. A rocket took out a sergeant.
God damn, dude.
And another rocket took out a lav with Rick Nolan in it. Both were killed instantly.
God damn, dude.
That was the first time that I came under fire.
And that's like platoon leadership dead, you know, at that point, which is rough.
I can hear the rockets and the bullets flying. There's about 400 Taliban that are dug in, and we're 2 platoons, about 80 soldiers.
I remember hearing it on the radio. They were getting hit hard. And even though you can't see it, you know that things weren't going right for them right off the bat. And there was a genuine worry, and you start to get that feeling in the pit of your stomach.
No time did I ever feel like anybody had overall control. People didn't know where they were coming or going. It was chaos. Frank Mellish actually took over this section. He was meant to be a soldier. Like, he was born with a rifle and standing at attention. It was at that point that this...
Some people are like that.
Football-esque a metal object screamed right by me. It was a rocket. And it was at that time that I realized Frank was no longer standing there. Frank had been killed by this rocket, along with Private William Cushley.
God damn, dude.
Hey, let's go, we're moving back. We had our asses handed to us. We lost.
I'm all right.
It was devastating. We were rock stars till that point. We were indestructible to that point. You know, nothing had really happened to us. And that just, it brought everything crashing down.
There's a weight of responsibility that goes on a commander's shoulders that I don't think, unless you've ever been a commander, you understand and appreciate how lonely it is and how much of a burden that is. Everyone thinks about killing the other person, but you actually are going to kill your own people, and you can't avoid that.
And I think this goes to show, like, this is a really good video to show, like, the mentality of higher leadership, right? And this is also, like, the reason why, like, obviously you want camaraderie amongst your lower enlisted, and you want to be, a respectable leader, right? And this is hard for any CO. How do I gain my men's respect while also not getting too close to them, right? And the reason for that is exactly this, right? In combat scenarios, you are going to be sending your men into dangerous situations where they will potentially lose their life, right? And it's one thing to train for that. It's another thing to have to actually endure it, right? Because you can't really train for it, right? Until it happens, right? And then those men are gone. But it is something that you have to come to grips with to, unfortunately, win the day, right? And in sustained combat, right? You know, casualties, unfortunately, are acceptable, right? Especially for infantry regiments, you know, here in Canada. That's just, it's sad, but it's an acknowledgement that I think, you know, if you're joining the infantry, you kind of accept in your own way too, you know. Now it's one thing to say, like, yeah, nothing's happened to us yet, and that's absolutely true. You probably do feel like a badass up until you guys get hit. You know what I mean? I get that feeling, right?
Kill your own people, and you can't avoid that. If you thought that fight that you've just gone through was bad, tomorrow is going to be absolutely worse.
Yeah, exactly. Sustained combat, it only gets worse as time goes on.
The Taliban that day got lucky. Charles Company had done a great job getting onto the objective, but the Taliban got lucky and killed 2 NCOs and 2 soldiers. And as a result,
losing that sergeant right out rip is insane.
Again, onto the same ground.
2 NCOs too, so it's probably both section leaders. So you're up to master corporals at that point.
Again, and we're going to do the show of force again.
One of the opening salvos was
Same
going to
plan.
be a strafing and bombing of White School by A-10s on the morning of the 4th. And that's exactly what transpired, or where things started to go wrong again, as we now know.
Yeah.
The way the sun rises in Afghanistan is such a weird way. There's this hazy, dingy light that comes up. The sun was trying to cut through this smog, this pollution, this filth.
I remember seeing the A-10 circling around us, and I remember looking up at it, and I was like, oh, it's a good feeling to have that there, It's a formidable aircraft. It's deadly, absolutely deadly.
I watched the A-10 roll in. We all let out our cheer, because the A-10, when it does roll in and let loose its cannon, makes an incredible kind of a chainsaw ripping noise.
It's such a haunting sound. I don't even know how to explain it. It's loud, and it sounds like almost like a moose call, but it echoes. Just echoes off the mountains. It's so loud.
And the next thing I know, I'm tossed in the air. I remember I land face first and skidding across the jagged rocks and this dust.
I remember marveling at the aircraft, and I was like, I turned to the guys over the side, and I was like, looks like somebody's getting breakfast, or it looks like somebody's eating it, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
It was then that the blood began to pour down my face, and I'm trying to catch it with my hands. I'll try to save it, I guess. And as I'm
complete disorientation. Yeah, what the fuck is going on, right?
It begins to overflow. There's so much blood pouring into my hands that I have like a handful. Like when you wash your face and you let it fill up. I sit before you as a man that knows what it's like to feel the wind on his exposed brains. What turned out to have been an American A-10 Warthog had accidentally strafed us.
Yeah.
The pilot was looking at Charles Company's garbage pit, where they had eaten breakfast and were burning their garbage before mounting their vehicles to fire me in. And so when the pilot had rolled in, instead of rolling in on the school, he rolled in on Charles Company with a couple of bursts of his cannon.
Yeah.
The radio cracked.
So again, I think during this incident, unfortunately, we lost one infanteer, but insane amounts of wounded, I believe, during this operation. I think on the Canadian side, there was 40 wounded total, I believe, and I'm pretty sure like 30 to 40 or 30 to 35 roughly were from this incident or something of that nature. It was an insane amount of casualties from just this, and again, it rendered Charles Company virtually combat ineffective. Right after this happened, absolutely fucked. It happened
with a couple of bursts of his cannon.
Again, I'm not really too sure how you misidentify
and there was
labs
panic on
in the staging area with NATO forces, but whatever,
I
right?
remember them saying friendly fire, and my stomach just sort of sunk right there. I felt sick.
Like, yeah, you would.
I remember throwing up over the side of the vehicle.
That how bad is it? 1 killed, 34 wounded.
34 wounded. There it is, right there.
I remember I repeated the number and I said, what?
Like, yeah.
And so essentially the Battle of Panjwai was over for me. And in the 48 hours, 8 platoon had gone from 40 to 5 from either killed or wounded.
Which is fucked. Like, so an entire platoon, an entire fucking platoon just got wiped, basically, right there. Right? Put that in perspective, right? Now, not killed, but combat ineffective, taken out for wounds, right? That is insane. That is insane to have happen in a friendly fire incident, right? And it's like, again, there's not really a whole lot of animosity about that, right? But it's just, again, like when you're talking about like no contribution in Afghanistan, it's like, bruh, what? Like, what the fuck?
3 to 5 from either killed or wounded.
That's something I'll never forget.
Jesus.
It's not the way soldiers are supposed to go, you know? Not friendly fire.
No, it's the worst way to go.
Where are we going to go with this next? We've now made 2 attempts on this and stalled. We had to regain our momentum. We needed to do something. We had to take the fight to the enemy, and what were we going to do? It had to be done rapidly, because now we're on the world stage, and the Taliban are watching.
We are the only people here on the ground, right? We need to sit here and figure out how we're going to take this objective, because there's no one going to come down here and help us. It is us, what we got on the ground.
It was decided that clearly if the Taliban now have amassed and concentrated their force south to confront Charles' company, they must have left the back door open near me. I would attack from the north.
Our OC, Major Abthorpe, came out and told us, you know, we're probably going to be thrust in as the tip of the spear. So be ready for that. You know, basically his way of telling us, game time, pull your shorts up and let's go.
Yeah.
This is it. It's going to be a hard fight. We will succeed in this effort and defeat an enemy in a very small piece of ground, but a very important piece of ground here.
That was Fraser right there.
We recock yet again. We're not going to show the Taliban for a third time where we're coming from. We're going to slowly move down from the north and come down and build our own road to nullify the IED threat with all the roads that are there. So we take 2 bulldozers and we create our own path.
The Canadian bulldozers that I had in my inventory, our heavy equipment is, it's old.
Yeah. To say the least.
To Major Gasparotto,
everything we have is
with
fucking
the state
old, man.
The armor and the equipment. Tapping into the ingenuity of the sappers, they found their own armor. They welded it onto the civilian equipment. We did our very best to make these bulldozers and the rest of the heavy equipment as safe as possible.
Made our own killdozers.
Mad Maxing from the movie.
Holy shit, dude.
I
didn't know that.
Up on the night of the 10th to give them the pep talk, to give them the speech that a commander ought to give them, that we're going to go into battle, to prepare yourselves and so forth. But I wanted everybody to remember the significance of September 11th, 2006, that would be the day that we finally really took the fight deep into the Taliban heartland at that point of where we were going.
Very soon after, we began to launch our offensive from Patrol Base Wilson south towards the White School.
Scared, excited. Excited and scared.
Everything above?
If they weren't scared, was probably a liar.
We moved in a highly methodical manner whereby artillery and aerial bombardment would hit for the enemy positions on the front line. Infantry dismounted would then sweep out to take that new line, which would then allow my dozers to move forward and create a breach or a lane in the grape fields or over the wadis, which then would allow the lavs to come forward.
I remember thinking a lot of things during the firefight. You know, is this real?
Go, go, go!
It was exciting. It was exciting. When I say it's fun, I can think of a lot more fun things to do than being shot at, or even having to shoot at another human being. You know, I wouldn't call that fun.
Depends who you ask.
To die for their cause.
It's the weird thing about it, you know?
These roads, the intelligence told us, were full of IEDs, and we found hundreds of them.
Holy shit, dude.
The enemy places roadside bombs and IEDs along roads. So the best way to not fall victim to an IED is to avoid roads. That involved collateral damage, but it also resulted in avoiding IEDs.
I remember telling the task force, destroy as little as you possibly can, because people have to move back there afterwards. You know, knock down walls, which we can rebuild, but try not knock down the whole compound, which we don't have to do. So when the families come back, we don't become the enemy.
Again, I can understand that mentality to an extent, but it's like when you're also fighting an enemy in a fortified position. Yeah, like, listen, as an infantry on the ground, I'm not going to fucking die because, you know, these people got to move back to their families. That's the shit thing to say about it, but I'm not going to fucking die because of that, right? No, I'm going to blow that fucking house apart and kill the 6 enemy combatants inside, and we can deal with the consequences after the fact, right? That is the reality of the situation, right? Obviously, you don't intend on doing it. You don't plan to do it, right? And if you can avoid bombing the place into fucking scorched earth, yeah, of course. But when you're now on the ground and you see that building's full of enemy combatants and you're in a lav, fucking blow that building apart. I don't give a shit, right? Neutralize the threat. That's what it is. And unfortunately, that's what higher and unfortunately, I think largely the civilian population at large doesn't really seem to understand, right? It's like, if I'm facing, like, I'm not trying to die, right? Yes, I'm here to serve my country. I'm here to do my part. I'm not trying to die for that, right? You know, I'm not, you know, I'm willing to die for my country. I'd rather not, but I'm willing to. But again, big part there, rather would not. So yeah, if it's completely avoidable to not do that, we're gonna use the equipment we have to make sure that doesn't happen. Exactly, right? Like, plain and simple.
I remember one bulldozer. I remember watching the guy bulldozing with the optics on the vehicle, and he hit an explosive device.
Oh shit.
And you know, whether it was an old landmine or it was something that they had planted, but he hit an explosive device in front of his vehicle. I remember seeing the huge plume of dust. There was so much chaos going on, they couldn't figure out who it was, and that's when we heard Josh's name over the radio.
What's his full name?
Joshua James Kluge. Really, in the end, it took a friend dying to make me realize that this was a horrible, horrible thing.
You mean the war?
Just war. War is a terrible, terrible thing.
By the time we had made it down to the White School, the enemy had largely withdrawn. And they realized that they couldn't fight our overwhelming firepower.
We finally owned the White School. After weeks of blood, sweat, and tears, we'd finally taken that piece of terrain, which became very much a symbol to the Taliban, and they're holding out. We finally had dislocated them.
Operation Medusa, certainly the shooting portion of it had come to an end.
Success.
The mission was achieved in the end, yes.
Following our successes on Medusa and their losses, the Taliban truly realized the absolute overwhelming amount of firepower we were bringing to bear. And even in any dedicated man's mind, there comes a point of futility of why am I going to stand here? I can run away and fight another day.
Our assessment is we've probably killed 1,000.
Jesus Christ.
It's just disgusting a number. So we probably killed most of their command and control in the area. It was just horrendous.
So, and again, like, this is the intelligence officer coming in here and saying, like, yeah, we probably killed around 1,000 guys, but from all these people on the ground, right? This is just one of the things I want to, like, give, or at least say about, like, Canadian culture, Canadian military culture. Did you get the feeling that 1,000 enemy combatants were killed just from the way those guys were talking? They were talking about their losses. They were talking about their effect on the ground, right, and what was happening, right? But you know, you didn't hear them talk about 1,000 enemy combatants being taken out during that action, right? Which is that is an insane amount. That is a fucking crazy amount for what it was in such a condensed area, right? And again, a lot of that is done with labs, done hand to hand, not hand to hand, but with small arms fire, right? Close range combat. There's more urban area from the map there, not entirely urban. Obviously, you had fields separating, but there was a lot of urban portions as well there for sure, and a lot of compounds. So, yeah, nasty fighting, nasty fighting, man.
In the area, it was just horrendous.
In terms of numbers, nobody can really afford to lose that many people and to lose that much real estate. So I would say that it pretty much, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for the Taliban.
And so, in classic insurgency fashion, they further blended and they withdrew.
Medusa, it was a pretty big turning point in the Kandahar province. I think it was a huge victory in terms of taking away real estate from the Taliban. We did that. You know, we took away part of their control, loosened their grip. We basically, we kicked them out of their home, took them out of their birthplace. We took it away from them.
I sincerely believe that Medusa was the battle that saved Kandahar. and protected the legitimate government of Afghanistan. Without it, I believe that the insurgency would have spread like a cancer through the suburbs of Kandahar city and completely toppled that local governor. And then the rest of the country would have followed. So Operation Medusa showed the resolve of both the coalition and the government of Afghanistan to stop the insurgency from spreading.
After the
and also keep in mind too, right, when you hear, and maybe this is just a, you know, largely just a thing us from other nations notice, right? But we're not saying like Canadian forces, we're saying coalition forces, right? Because it's a coalition of forces, right? It's not just Americans there, it's not just British people there, it's not just Canadians here. This is a coalition of forces. This is an alliance of nations, right? So again, I feel like any contribution to that, especially when it's not even a small contribution, it's not even like, oh yeah, like we need help like managing our own province. Like, no, we're taking on one of the largest provinces ourselves, right? So it's not even like you can sit there and say there wasn't a contribution, because like, fucking handle it yourself and dedicate another 40,000 of your own men. Like, go for it, you know what I mean? If that's how you feel, right? Largely, but you know, otherwise we are a coalition, we are a team, right? Largely, right? I'd hope. Hopefully we can, you know, come to terms with that, you know, come to grips, but just like, yeah, I just don't want that to be a false mentality that like fucking Canada did nothing. You know what I mean? Because it's just not true.
The insurgency from spreading. This
is from a time when we actually did do something, guys.
After the Operation Medusa, they changed their tactics from coming into a direct fight with us to the traditional guerrilla warfare. But what ended up happening was we didn't look at the root cause that caused this whole issue. So population went back to supporting the Taliban, and the Taliban came with even greater resurgence because said, see, here you thought they were really going to help you. They didn't again, did they?
We were doing, I think, a lot of the right things. We were not going to win that conflict in the year that we were there. All we could do is just move the yardsticks a couple inches down range and hand it off to the next guys, because this was a conflict that was going to be measured in a generation or two.
Yeah.
We wear the watch, but they have the time.
Which America getting into it, I don't think they realize that at all. 10 Canadians died during Operation Medusa and its aftermath. After the defeat in Operation Medusa, the Taliban switched tactics, focusing on IED strikes and attacks against civilians. They have not tried to retake Kandahar since. Obviously, this was uploaded a bit ago. A year or two ago there. What a great documentary that was. I want to pause it there just because it's probably copyrighted music there. I'm not sure how much of that is going to be copyrighted, guys, but I thought this was a great documentary. I thought this was really, really good. You know, we obviously had some veterans in there, and obviously some still serving members into talk, which was great to see. And yeah, just, you know, again, a massive show of force from the Canadian side in Afghanistan. Something I've heard quite a bit about, you know, again, being an ex-reservist, so it's something I want to kind of bring a little bit of attention to, I suppose, especially given like everything I've heard in the recent news, again, from the American president there. Again, that's no hate, that's no, you know, disrespect. Again, I'd vote for myself, you know, if I lived there and if I was a citizen of that country. But again, it's just the case of like, I feel like I feel like it's not really fair to say that, you know what I mean? To be fair. Now, did we contribute as much as America? No. But again, you have to consider GDP's population, fucking the fact that we were there to begin with, right? When this was an attack on America, right? It's just things like that, right, guys? Like, so let's not be, you know, we're on the same fucking team, hopefully, right? Same team. I want to be on the same team. I know me personally, I really want us to be on the same team. You know, the government of Canada, I can't really speak for them, you know, unfortunately. And unfortunately, most Canadians, apparently the way we're voting, at least, can't speak for them either. But I know a large portion of Canadians do feel that way, so you know, let's not be at each other's throats. Let's try not to be, guys. I appreciate it. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this reaction, hit that like button, subscribe for more content from me, and of course leave recommendations down in the comments below. Sorry I blabbed a lot in this one, guys, but yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and yeah, join our Discord if you're not in it. And a big thank you, of course, to all of our members, Oliver Stadi, our Triari, our Prince Dagenhart, and of course our prefects, Hobbit, Andrew, Psychotic Ducky, and Bikun. I appreciate you guys, and yeah, without any further delay, this has been Centurion, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.